There are no prizes for guessing where I am today. Obviously, I am in one of the greatest cultural and historical centres anywhere in the world, Paris. And the reason that I'm in Paris is because I'm giving a talk in this beautiful city about one of the greatest Welshmen there ever was, Owain ap Griffith ap Griffith, or as you might better know him, Owain Glyndwr, the man who led a revolution, a rebellion, a revolt against English rule in Wales between the years 1400 and 1415. Now, Owain Glyndwr is a mighty figure in Welsh history, but there is a very close Welsh and French connection that Owain played on during his life. You see, he was at war with the English crown and he needed powerful friends. That's why in the year 1404, Owain sent a representative across to France to try and get the support of the French king Charles VI. Now, Charles, of course, was engaged in his own war with the English crown. A little known war you might have heard of called the 100 Years' War. So Charles had his own agenda for giving support to this Welshman who was claiming to be a prince. That is the year 1404. In 1405, Charles actually sent across an army into Wales to be under Owain's command. This French army, it marched to the heart of West Wales. It reached as far inland as Worcester, where across the fields in the distance stood an English royal army. For 8 tense days, this Welsh and French army on one side stood face to face with an English army on the other side. For reasons we don't know, the engagement never happened. The French picked up their weapons one day, turned and left. Now, this was a bitter blow for Owain's dreams and aspirations of leading Wales to freedom. But that did not stop him trying to counsel the French for more support. Now, the following year, 1406, Owain actually sent a letter across to Charles VI, and it's a remarkable document that you can still see today right here in Paris. It's known as the Penna Letter, and in this letter, Owain sent out his manifesto, his ambitions for an independent Wales. In the manifesto, Owain states that he wants to free the Welsh Church from England, an independent Welsh Church. He also lays out his dreams to see 2 universities established in Wales, one in the north and one in the south. And this is a remarkable document that, unfortunately for Owain, he was not able to realise. But if you come with me, I'll also tell you about another Welshman who was able to operate here in Paris and set up his own dreams for a crown. Now, in the year 1484, Owain Glyndwr's distant cousin was based here in Paris, and he had taken up Owain's mantle of being the son of prophecy, y mab darogan, and his name was Henry Tudor. Now, Henry Tudor arrived in France in 1484, and he very quickly met up with the French court, the French royal court of the then King of France, his own other distant cousin, Charles VIII. By this point, Henry Tudor had been reinvented as a potential King of England, a candidate for Richard III's crown. And he was in France to try and canvass the French court, the French king and the French parliament for men and money to go to England to do war with Richard III. Throughout the early part of 1485, Henry was based in Paris. He was with the French court, and he was in this very city where, as I say, he was trying to get that support. We know Henry was here. We know he was in the city. We know he visited Notre Dame Cathedral. We know he left offerings. This city in 1485 became the central hub for Henry's operations, for him to lay out his strategy and lay out his plan to steal a crown. Now, for the French, they had a problem. They hated the English. And you see, even though we know that in the year 1453, the French had won the 100 Years' War, back in 1485, they weren't at all sure that these wars between England and France would reopen. This is the reason that the French had repeatedly meddled in English affairs throughout the 15th century. Just think back to 1471, when we have obviously famously Warwick the Kingmaker. He was sent into England with French army and French men to change the king on the English throne. Now, in 1485, the French spotted an opportunity to meddle in English affairs again. They wanted to destabilise Richard III. They wanted to keep Richard III from reopening the war with France. So Henry Tudor comes to the French court. He asks for French help. He asks for French money and French men. And the French crown were only too happy to see that accomplished. So the French crown gives Henry Tudor some money. They send him some men, around 2,000 military men they give to Henry Tudor. And on the 1st of August, 1485, Henry is ready. He has his ships in Harfleur Harbour to the north of Paris. He looks out into the Channel and he gives the order for the fleet to leave. What happens next is history in the making. The French change the king on the English throne. Never forget, Henry Tudor becoming King of England was in many ways a French victory over the English. So I'm on the way to tonight's event where I'm going to be speaking about Owain Glyndwr for the Paris Welsh Society. Now, I've spoken at some many magnificent venues and cities over the years. I've spoken at many a village hall, for example. I've spoken in libraries, museums. I've even spoken at Windsor Castle. But there's something super inspiring and something I'm proud of, that I've been able to take my book tours internationally. Now, I did speak in Paris earlier this year, and I'm very fortunate to be back in Paris tonight to speak about the man who many people think was the last real Prince of Wales, Owain Glyndwr. I hope people are going to enjoy it as I delve into the life of the man who was called by many the Son of Prophecy. Now, you do know I've written a book called The Son of Prophecy about Owain's cousin, Henry Tudor, but that's a different story for a different day. Today is Owain's Day, and I'm here in Paris to delve into that. So, I'm off. Wish me luck. Prynawn dda, pawb. Bonsoir. Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me over to Paris to speak about a subject that I have always wanted to explore, and that is the life and times of Owain ap Griffith, or choose his more clickbaity name, Owain Glyndwr. Now this is a mostly Welsh audience, I believe. You know the name Glyndwr. Maybe some of you even revere this man. That unrelenting patriot, the father of Welsh nationalism, as he is often been called. He is very much an enduring symbol in many ways of Welsh nationhood. It's okay. He is an unapologetic Welshman, the man who is able to pave the way for the likes of your Alan Wyn Joneses. Today, Glyndwr Owain was ranked number 2 in a poll of the greatest Welsh heroes. He came number 2nd to a certain Nye Bevan, and I think that's fair enough, to be honest. And the Welsh people were, for nearly a century, disempowered, disenfranchised and disillusioned. This is the context we need to set our story in. Now, like many a conquered people who are facing a stark reality, members of the Welsh gentry class, they had often sought to compromise with their conqueror, and they looked to make the most of the scraps from the table. That's an age-old reality throughout history. That is simply what happens. One of those who looked to compromise with the English crown is somebody who is not often appreciated that he did so today, and that is our Owain himself. In Anglesey, Glyndwr's first cousins also do the same, and they are called the Tudors. You may have heard of them. Will eventually pay the ransom he's sure. Mortimer is furious, and he decides he's not only going to defect sides and join Owain Glyndwr, he's going to marry his daughter as well. And I think that is just an absurd overreaction. But that is capital of Wales, and now he's lost it. In the process of this castle being captured, his son-in-law Edmund Mortimer is killed. Owain's wife, daughter and granddaughters are all captured by the English, and they are taken back to the Tower of London. Within 6 years, apart from Glyndwr's wife, all of those would be dead. Now, despite the odd raid here and there that did follow, the revolt after 1409, it's effectively over. This was a war of attrition, and in a war of attrition, the resources of the English crown, it simply proved insurmountable. After a dozen years in the field, the Welsh were exhausted. They had evaded repeated royal expeditions. They were starved by a dearth of provisions, and they were frustrated as recaptured and re-garrisoned Welsh, English castles even, in Wales, now began to repel their assaults with little difficulty. Psychologically as much as militarily, Owain's men were done. He too was also done. For posterity, in a letter that was written to the King of France. This letter, in fact, is actually kept a few metres from here in the Archives Nationale. It is the famous Pennell letter. From Pennell, Owain writes to the King of France, and he records in this that once he had freed the Welsh from the fury of the barbarous Saxons who had usurped themselves to his land of Wales, he wanted to establish an independent Welsh church with a Welsh-speaking clergy. He wanted to set up 2 national universities, one in the north and one in the south, and he wished to restore the ancient Welsh laws of Hywel Dda. What Glyndwr is proposing is ambitious, it's revolutionary, and it's very far-sighted. Let us consider this. Owain's vision does finally come true. but not in his lifetime as he fought for. National awakening, if you will, of the Welsh during the Victorians. Now, Owain's reputation is revisited by many of these historians who are seeking for a Welsh national hero who could represent Welsh unity, ambition and self-assurance. Now, different societies and periods, they do often reinterpret the past in different ways. They tend to mould past figures in their own image to put their own values on that person. The same has happened to Owain. Today he's raised up as a hero of Welsh nationalists. Remarkably, in the Victorian period, he was being raised up as a champion of British nationalism. I'm sure in 50 years' time he will be reinterpreted again, because that's simply what we do as the study of history. More than 600 years since he proclaimed himself the Prince of Wales before fading off into the mists, I think it's fair to say Owain Glyndwr still lives on. Thank you. Right, well, I've just come out of the talk and I think it went very well. I was able to share a lot about who Owain Glyndwr was. Now, for those of you who want to learn more about Welsh history, and in particular the rise of the Welsh Tudors, you can, of course, read my book, Son of Prophecy. I would love to be able to show you a copy of what you would be getting, but unfortunately, I sold out. Everyone bought a copy. So hopefully, I'll be back in Paris one day to give another talk, but if not, please check out my website, nathanamin.com, to see when I will be near you next time. Welai ti tro nesaf. I'll see you soon. Thank you.